Temporal Forces is getting closer by the day, and with it already having released in Japan, there's the benefit of seeing how the new cards are performing. Raging Bolt EX is one a lot of people are excited for, myself included, and it's looking pretty solid. The attack does a multiplier of 70, scaling up by discarding energy in play, similar to a chilly little rat you might be familiar with, except that it isn't limited to a specific type, does more damage, and it's a dinosaur, so yeah, I don't think I need to tell you who's better. Raging Bolt's already seeing immediate success over in Japan, and we're going to be covering 3 builds that have helped it do so, thanks to this new powerhouse of a Pokemon. The core concept remains the same across the 3 builds though, as it uses ancient Pokemon. You can use Professor Sada to get 2 energy out onto 2 different Pokemon from your discard pile, draw 3. It's a great way to get energy in play for Raging Bolt to discard and get attacking immediately. And since Raging Bolt does need 2 different energy types to attack, it means you can get one from the discard, attach one for turn, and start swinging immediately with proper sequencing. The other core piece the deck uses is Sandy Shock's EX. It allows you to get fighting energy from your discard pile and onto it once per turn as long as your opponent has 4 or fewer prizes remaining, meaning mid-game you can quickly ramp up damage while recovering energy you've likely discarded with Raging Bolt's attack on the previous turn. Since it is also an ancient Pokemon, it can be targeted with Sada, and its attack isn't bad either, doing 200 damage without needing to discard any energy, which can help out with single prize matchups by conserving energy, and it can also hit weakness into lightning type decks, so that's pretty solid since Miraidon's gonna be seeing play still. The final Pokemon in all these builds is Greninja. Its Concealed Cards ability gives you solid draw power while discarding energy to synergize perfectly with Professor Sada and Sandy Shocks. Earthen Vessel is another inclusion in all the lists as it allows you to discard a card, likely an energy, to trigger Sada and Sandy Shocks, then grab 2 basic energy from the deck to make sure that you have that lightning or fighting type to get Raging Bolt going. The new A-Spec Prime Catcher is also a great inclusion for the list, giving you Gust on an item card, and other standard staples like Nest Ball, Ultra Ball, Iono, and Boss's Orders are also included in the list, as well as Pokegear to make sure you can get into your supporters consistently. Now that's it for the similarities, so now let's get into the differences. The first list we're going to be covering includes Iron Leaves EX, giving you type coverage up against Charizard EX since you're going to hit it for weakness. Its ability is a great way to get it online, as it's not an ancient Pokemon, you can't use Professor Sada to it, but when you put it into play, you can move it into the active spot and move any energy to it if you do. So you can use Professor Sada, get grass energy onto 2 Raging Bolts, move this into the active, attach an energy for turn, and start swinging. Hits 180, double that to 360 to one-shot Charizard, it's pretty solid. There is also Slitherwing as a single prize attacking option, which can be helpful into Lost Box decks, as you're only going to be taking 1 prize against them a lot of the times, you're going to try and force them to do the same. It does take 90 damage itself after it attacks though, so they can easily finish you off with a Greninja or Sableye to take you out while setting up damage elsewhere. So it's not like the biggest fix, but it's another option. I'd probably cut it for something else personally. The other benefit is you're going to be having a great option into electric decks, as the 120 damage it's going to be doing though does double to 240, so you can be going with a single prize attacking option into them instead of using the Sandy Shocks. This build has a turbo focus in mind, using quick draw cards like Trekking Shoes and Pokestop to quickly dig through the deck, discarding energy as you do to set up the engines and establish your board quickly. As Pokestop does have the risk of discarding Pokemon and supporter cards though, you need a way to be able to recover them, so Palpad and Super Rod seems like easy inclusions, just in case they accidentally find their way in the discard. Now something you might have noticed is the stadium count is quite low, only having 2 copies of Pokestop, meaning something like Path to the Peak could easily shut off all of our abilities. But as these cards are coming out post-rotation, you don't need to worry about that anymore, which is kind of awesome. To give our Pokemon some extra bulk, there is Ancient Boost Capsules, so that our Raging Bolts have 300 HP, and they aren't going to get one-shot by Charizard EX when we've taken 3 prizes, or by Giratina that can do 280 damage. Makes some favorable math in other matchups as well. This build is certainly interesting, and I do like the inclusion of Iron Leaves to help out into the Charizard matchup, as that deck doesn't seem like it's going to be going anywhere anytime soon. Now this next build uses a 3rd energy type as well, using water as it includes Palkia VSTAR. It gives you an additional way to get energy out for Raging Bolt, being able to get 3 water from the discard, attach it to the Palkia or onto your Greninja. Raging Bolt can discard those for extra energy before Sandy Shocks are online. Does also mean you can use Palkia as an attacking option, being able to do 260 damage if our bench is full and the opponent, or even charge up Greninja to attack, doing 90 damage to 2 things, helping out into single prize matchups, or just setting up numbers to get into lower breakpoints for the Raging Bolt. It also has another single prize attacking option, being the new Koraidon, which can attack for a fighting energy and a colorless, doing 30 damage for each ancient Pokemon you have in play, meaning it caps at 180 with a full board of ancient Pokemon. This can be really helpful into the Lost Box matchup, as its 140 health keeps it outside of range of Cramorant and Sableye, but it can one-shot them, meaning the prize trade will be swinging in your favor. It can also help set up numbers into large health Pokemon or clean up knockouts set up by Greninja. As this deck has more attacking options than just the ancient Pokemon, there's the inclusion of Energy Switch to allow you to get Water Energy with Professor Sada onto our ancient Pokemon, then E-switch it onto Greninja or Palkia, similar to how Roaring Moon decks have been doing with Greninja previously. Now, this build has swapped out Ancient Boost Capsule with Bravery Charm. It only gives 50 health instead of 60, but gives the flexibility of being able to be used on Greninja. It still means Raging Bolt's going to have 290 HP, being outside of range of Giratina and Charizard if it's taken 3 prizes, so it seems like a fine change to do. Now, the other big difference is this is going to go for a higher count of draw supporters instead of stadium and item draw options, which personally I'm a bigger fan of, as you should be able to see more consistency and get into the pieces you need, seeing larger hand sizes instead of just a few extra cards at a time, as well as the risk that Pokestops brings. I'd love to hear what draw engine you prefer in the comments below. The third build we'll be looking at is a little bit more streamlined in concept, as it only uses lightning and fighting energy, but does give you more ways to get those energy into play with Gutsy Pickaxe and Koraidon EX, who can get 2 fighting energy cards from the discard pile and attach them to the Pokemon. There is a trade-off though, as it does end your turn. This is a great option if you're going first though, as you can't attack anyways. And to make the most out of our first turn, we're also going to be including Squawkabilly EX to give you extra draw power and to make sure that energy gets into the discard pile to trigger the Koraidon. Since this build is going for higher counts of fighting energy, Gutsy Pickaxe is useful as you can draw a card, but if it's a fighting energy, you can attach it to one of your bench fighting Pokemon, giving you more energy ramping to get Raging Bolt's damage up. This build is similar to the first one in that it focuses more on item and stadium draw power with lower counts of supporters. As it does include Pokestop, there is also Pal Pad and Super Rod for recovery for when you accidentally hit those Pokemon and supporter cards, as we previously mentioned. This build is definitely interesting, but seems to be the simplest of the 3, focusing mainly on Raging Bolt as your attacker, just getting it online and swinging for big numbers. I like it, but personally feel the other 2 versions give you a little bit more options for varied gameplay into certain matchups. Of these 3 lists, I'm most interested in the Palkia variant, as it seems to have the most flexibility in playstyle, and I prefer the extra cards provided from draw supporters as opposed to hoping to hit the right things off Pokestop. That's just my opinion though, I'd love to hear yours in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe to keep up with the content, and if you enjoyed the video, hitting that thumbs up button is always appreciated. Till next time, stay golden, you Goomba.